Well, I've been going to the same church all my life, and everybody knows me, my kids and my wife. And when I get there, they know just what I'll do. I lead my family over to our favorite pew. Now it's not reserved, but it's just understood. My behind is kind of molded to the wood. And I know every grain in every board, 'cause I've been sitting there since 1954. Hey, I'm sitting in my pew. Hey, that's where I sit. I don't mean to be unfriendly, and I don't mean to be rude, but hey, I'm just sitting in my pew. Now I can only remember a couple of times that somebody sat there not realizing it was mine. It's usually a visitor here from out of town, or one of the teenagers half asleep that just plops down. Now whether it's a teen or a guest from out of town, I try to catch them before they ever touch down. And you know I always speak in Christian love. That way it's more or less just a verbal nudge. And I say, hey, you're sitting in my pew. Hey, that's where I sit. Well, my dad sat there before me, and his dad, he sat there too. So hey, you're sitting in my pew. Well, a few weeks ago our pastor preached about sin, and he talked about bad habits we get in. Then he listed 14 things we should not do, and one was being selfish with a pew. Well, I could not believe he'd waste time talking about this. What difference does it make where a person sits? But he did explain it was not about the pew. It was more about a selfish attitude. Then the next week we visited a church in another town, and I led my family in and we sat down. Then a big man and his kids said we'd have to move, because they said we were sitting in their pew. Hey, you're sitting in our pew. Excuse us, mister, but hey, that's where we sit. Now before you get too comfy, I'm afraid you're gonna have to move, 'cause hey, you're sitting in our pew. Well, we were all disgusted, but they were too big to ignore. So we just got up and we walked right out that door. But while I drove home, I realized that sounded like me. And I knew that God had used that to make me see. Now ever since that day, I've changed my ways, and the folks at church just seem to be amazed, 'cause I don't sit where I used to anymore. And when I'm approached, I'm different than before. And I say, hey, sit here in my pew. Hey, I'm glad to move. I'm just trying to be friendly, like a Christian ought to do. So hey, sit here in my pew. I'm just trying to be friendly, like a Christian ought to do. So hey, sit here in my pew.